Victoria Thompson went to a hotel to get a room with her male assistant. I called her parents, feigning panic, and said, "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, Victoria's been kidnapped. She's at the Phoenix West Hotel. Hurry." The Thompson family rushed over, bringing several police officers with them. After they broke down the door and saw Victoria, panic-stricken, and her male assistant lying naked on the bed, everyone was dumbfounded. Victoria Thompson, humiliated and furious, slapped me hard across the face and yelled, "Sincere Clark, you just want to force me to divorce you, don't you? Fine, I'll grant you your wish. I'd like to see what you, a mere live-in son-in-law, can do after leaving our Thompson family." "Do you really think the Thompsons can't survive without you?" I left with nothing, and just as I wanted, I got the divorce certificate. The moment I walked out of City Hall, I took out my phone, dialed a number, and said softly, "I'm divorced. Are the paternity test results out?" A respectful voice came from the other end of the line. "The paternity test results just came in today. You are indeed the long-lost eldest young master of the Clark family." The moment I walked out of City Hall, I let out a long sigh of relief. All the pent-up frustration from these past few years dissipated at that moment. Looking at the divorce certificate in my hand, a self-deprecating smile appeared on my face. I tore it up and threw it into the nearby trash can. Victoria Thompson watched me with a dark expression, then tore up her own divorce certificate and threw the pieces in my face. She said coldly, "Sincere Clark, are you satisfied now? You deliberately schemed against Ethan Miller and me, forcing me to divorce you. I granted your wish. All your achievements over the years were only possible because of the Thompson family's connections and resources. Without us, what are you? I'll wait for the day you kneel and beg me." Ethan Miller, standing beside her, said to me with false sincerity, "Sincere, you and Miss Thompson were married for years. Don't you have even a little trust? Without Miss Thompson's support, how could you have become a business elite in just a few short years? Don't mistake the Thompson family's help for your own ability. The hotel incident was just a misunderstanding. I drank too much. Miss Thompson took me to the hotel. I vomited all over her, and just as I was taking off my clothes to clean up, you burst in with people. It's not Miss Thompson's fault this blew up. It's mainly because you're too petty." As soon as he finished speaking, I threw a punch, hitting him hard in the face. I knew Ethan Miller was deliberately trying to provoke me. He succeeded previously. Victoria Thompson always protected him. Whenever Ethan and I had a conflict, Victoria would blindly side with him and force me to apologize to him. This made Ethan Miller even more brazen towards me. But now that I'm divorced from Victoria, there's no need to tolerate this cur anymore. Ethan Miller clutched his face, cried out in pain, and fell to the ground. Though he looked pained, his eyes were filled with mockery and triumph as he looked at me. In his view, me hitting him in public would definitely enrage Victoria. And just as he expected, Victoria flew into a rage, yelling at me, "Sincere Clark, are you insane? How many times have I told you not to touch him? Why can't you get rid of this disgusting habit? Apologize to him or I'll never forgive you." Saying that, Victoria raised her hand to slap my face. I grabbed her wrist and flung it aside. Victoria staggered, nearly falling to the ground. She stared at me in disbelief, even more furious, and roared, "Sincere Clark, you dare to fight back." Before she could finish, I said calmly, "Miss Thompson, please recognize your current status. You're no longer my wife. Do you think I'll still put up with you? All these years, no matter how badly you treated me, I always gave in to you. I once loved you deeply. This love was too humble. You didn't care about my efforts at all. Taking advantage of my love for you, you trampled on my dignity. Victoria Thompson, love can't be sustained by one person's efforts alone. Don't you understand that? When I loved you, whatever you said went. Now that I don't love you, what do you think you are?" Victoria Thompson's face turned livid with anger. Seeing me leave, she shouted, "Sincere Clark, stop right there. If you dare to walk away, believe it or not, I'll go get a marriage certificate with Ethan Miller right now. By then, even if you regret it and kneel to beg me, it'll be useless." I left without looking back, waved my hand behind me, and said lightly, "Then I wish you both a long and happy marriage, and may you have children soon. Don't look back at the past. Don't settle in the future." Whatever I owed Victoria Thompson, I've paid it back in full. From now on, she and I have nothing to do with each other. After leaving City Hall, I took a cab to the mansion of the wealthy Clark family. The paternity test results were out. I was indeed the Clark family's long-lost eldest young master. Having grown up in an orphanage, I had always longed for family affection. I used to fantasize that my biological parents would suddenly appear before me one day. I never thought that at 25 it would actually come true. On the way to the Clark residence, I recalled my experiences over the years. At 18, I worked part-time while attending university. That's when I met Victoria Thompson, a girl from a wealthy family. The cliché drama of a rich girl falling for a poor boy happened to me. During college, she took good care of me. When I had no money for food or tuition, she was the one who helped me out. Many people mocked me as a kept man, a pretty boy moocher. I held it all in, determined to prove to everyone that I would absolutely not let Victoria down. In college, I studied a lot about financial management and other subjects, all to be able to help Victoria in the future. The year I graduated from college, the Thompson family's business ran into trouble. It was I who painstakingly helped the Thompson family turn things around, allowing them to survive the crisis and achieve new heights. Many bigwigs in the business world recognized my abilities and offered me large sums to poach me, but I refused them all. Meanwhile, Arthur and Eleanor Thompson boasted to everyone that it was their daughter's achievement, creating a genius persona for Victoria, completely ignoring my contributions. At that time, I didn't care. As long as I could help Victoria, that was enough for me. I hid my achievements and fame, willing to be the man behind Victoria, letting her enjoy the glory that was rightfully mine. But over time, Victoria gradually got carried away and truly began to see my hard work as her own ability. Especially after she hired Ethan Miller as her assistant 2 years ago, her attitude towards me gradually changed. Ethan Miller was a smooth talker and kept her happy all day. She quickly came to regard him as her confidant. The reason ancient emperors favored sycophants was because sycophants always did and said things to please the emperor, mastering the art of bootlicking. If that cur Ethan Miller were in ancient times, he'd definitely be the chief eunuch serving a fatuous emperor. I shook my head, no longer wanting to dwell on Victoria and Ethan. Better to think about meeting my biological parents. The Clark family's butler, Mr. Alistair Finch, had already briefly told me about the family. After my parents lost me back then, they adopted a child from an orphanage and named him Daniel Clark. My return to the Clark family, this time the clash between the real young master and the adopted one. I wondered what kind of sparks would fly. I had read some novels and short dramas about real and fake young masters, so I was prepared to feign civility while secretly competing and fighting with this adopted son. Upon arriving at the Clark residence, Mr. Finch greeted me at the door. He looked a bit odd and whispered to me, "Eldest young master. The second young master is having a bit of a tiff with Mr. and Mrs. Clark. Please go in quickly and mediate." I grunted in acknowledgement. It seemed that fake young master didn't want me back in the Clark family. That was understandable. After all, Daniel Clark had grown up in the Clark family, accustomed to a life of luxury, and believed he would inherit the family fortune, content to be a good-for-nothing, pampered rich kid. But now that I, the real young master, had returned, his beautiful dream had burst like a bubble. Of course, he'd be furious and panicked. I recalled the plot lines from those real versus fake young master novels and already had several coping strategies in mind. However, the moment I entered the Clark mansion and saw my parents and Daniel Clark, I froze. My parents hugged me, tears streaming down their faces, telling me how much they had missed me all these years, and kept saying they wanted to make up for what I had lost. And Daniel Clark, the fake young master, hugged me excitedly, his voice trembling. "Bro, you're finally back. This is great. I can finally catch my breath. I don't have to be forced by mom and dad to learn all that boring financial management stuff anymore." I've heard of your reputation in the business world. Many business elites praise your unique vision and bold investments. With you in full control of our family's business, I can finally be free to do what I love." My mother gave a wry, exasperated smile, while my father, furious, grabbed a feather duster and started swatting Daniel with it. Daniel dodged the feather duster, pushing me forward as a shield, and defiantly yelled at our parents, "I just like video games, I like to travel. I don't want to stay in the company managing those businesses. I'm naturally proud and free-spirited. I don't want to be a bird you keep in a cage. I can earn my own living. You don't need to worry about my future. Big bro is back now, and he's a genius in financial management, perfect for managing our family's business. If you retire, he can completely take over. Don't even think about forcing me to get involved in managing the family business." I stared blankly at this boisterous family, my brain almost short-circuiting. Where was the promised fight between the real and adopted young masters? Where were the conspiracies, schemes, and deceptions? None of the strategies I had prepared were of any use, however. I really liked this kind of family atmosphere. In the end, Daniel Clark only stopped after father had given him a few sharp whacks on the backside with the feather duster. I also got a general understanding of the family situation. My parents weren't in the best of health and were thinking of retiring early. They had originally planned to hand over the Clark family business to Daniel and me to manage. However, Daniel had no interest whatsoever in managing the family business. My parents were frustrated with his lack of ambition. While Daniel had his own difficulties, he was free-spirited and didn't want to force himself to do things he disliked. I hadn't expected such an outcome upon returning to the Clark family. It was quite good, though. At least I didn't have to worry about those disgusting internal family feuds. After I told my parents about what happened with Victoria Thompson, they were both indignant. That Victoria Thompson is truly disgusting. The Thompson family's development over these years is plain to see. If it weren't for you, how could they have grown so quickly? Son, it was wise of you to leave the Thompsons. They'll regret it sooner or later. Daniel's main concern, however, was about Ethan Miller. He looked at me strangely and said, "Big bro, my fiancé has a cousin named Ethan Miller. It couldn't be that bastard you mentioned, the one who was involved with Victoria, could it?" I was stunned for a moment, then said, "Do you have a photo of your fiancé's cousin?" Daniel found a photo in his phone's gallery. After looking at it, my expression also turned strange. I nodded and said, "That's him. What a coincidence." My parents narrowed their eyes at Daniel, a dangerous glint in them. Daniel quickly said, "Mom, Dad, don't look at me like that. It has nothing to do with me. You both approve of Sophia Miller. She's a good girl. Ethan Miller is just her distant cousin. They're not close, and we only had dinner together once recently." I smiled, unconcerned, and said, "It doesn't matter. Victoria and I are already divorced. Even if that Ethan Miller becomes the Thompsons' prized son-in-law, it has nothing to do with me." Mother slammed her hand on the table and said forcefully, "No way, my son will not be bullied like this, Daniel. Your wedding with Sophia is coming up. Make it clear to Sophia she needs to invite that Ethan Miller to your wedding. I must vent this anger for my son in public." Father also snorted coldly and said, "And the Thompsons, they must be invited too. Let them see with their own eyes what a noble status their so-called discarded live-in son-in-law actually has. I'll make the Thompson family publicly kneel and grovel." My parents' assertiveness left me stunned, and at the same time, a warm feeling spread through my heart. Is this what it feels like to be protected? This is my family. Daniel nudged me secretly and whispered, "Our parents are pretty badass, huh?" I smiled and nodded. Daniel said with a wry smile, "This is why I wanted to escape this family, bro. You have no idea how many times I've been thrashed by them, a tag team effort since I was a kid. Luckily, you're back finally. Someone can share the heat." I clapped him on the shoulder and said with a grin, "Little bro, you're too naive. Mom and Dad are getting older. Their health isn't great, so they don't hit as hard anymore. From now on, the job of disciplining you falls to your big bro. Don't worry, I'll make up for all these years you've missed out on brotherly camaraderie and respect." Daniel's eyes widened as he stared at me in disbelief. My divorce from Victoria Thompson was reported by some media outlets. The Thompsons, playing the victim, preemptively released a statement, slinging mud at me and hiring internet trolls to ruin my reputation. Netizens who didn't know the truth chimed in with comments. "Sincere Clark is too arrogant, thinking Thompson Corp. only survived because of him. He actually wanted to seize all the power? He should look at his own status exactly just a kept man, a pretty boy moocher, and he really thinks he's the Thompson family's savior? If it weren't for Victoria Thompson, who would even know who he is? He even wanted to take half of the Thompson family's assets during the divorce. How shameless, shameless pretty boy moocher, just go die. I heard that some time ago. Victoria Thompson and her male assistant Ethan Miller were caught in a hotel room by Sincere Clark and the Thompson family. That's fake news. Victoria Thompson clarified it herself. It was Sincere Clark who wanted half their assets and deliberately set it up. Ugh, scheming against his own wife. A man like Sincere Clark is truly a piece of scum. I paid no attention to the online uproar. My parents didn't intervene either, mainly wanting the online slander against me to escalate further. If the Clark family acted at this point, it would, at most, intimidate the Thompsons. But my parents wanted the Thompsons to go even further off the rails so they could then deliver a fatal blow. In Daniel's words, Mom and Dad look kind and gentle on the surface, but they're actually incredibly ruthless. They're masters at playing the long game to catch a big fish, I know from experience. You just get used to it. On the day of Daniel Clark and Sophia Miller's wedding, the Clark family invited many prominent figures from the business world. The wedding banquet was set up at the Clark family's ancestral estate. When Victoria Thompson and Ethan Miller arrived at the estate, they immediately attracted a lot of attention. Arthur and Eleanor Thompson were all smiles, sidling up to the business tycoons, deliberately trying to curry favor. Many guests were whispering amongst themselves. Looks like the Thompsons have latched onto someone powerful this time. No wonder they ditched Sincere Clark, that business genius, without hesitation. Yeah, who would have thought that Ethan Miller would be the distant cousin of the Clark family's daughter-in-law? Even if it's a distant relation, if the Clarks give the Thompsons even a little bit of resources, it would save the Thompsons decades of struggle. Even so, they shouldn't have incited those ignorant netizens against Sincere Clark online. If it weren't for Sincere Clark, the Thompson family would have gone bankrupt long ago. Others might not know their situation, but how could we who've dealt with them not understand? The genius persona the Thompsons created for Victoria, isn't it all because Sincere Clark was silently supporting her from behind the scenes? Without Sincere, how could Victoria possibly manage the Thompson family's businesses? To make Sincere leave with nothing and then kick him while he's down, what the Thompsons did was truly despicable. Well, the Thompsons found a powerful backer. Sincere Clark was just unlucky to run into such a family of ungrateful wretches. Hey, isn't that Sincere Clark by the buffet table? How did he get into the Clark estate? Who brought him in? Just then, someone spotted me feasting at the buffet table. By the buffet, I was eating sweets to replenish the mental energy I'd expended recently. The Clark family's business empire was vast. To understand it thoroughly, I had done a lot of homework recently, poring over documents day and night. It had drained a lot of my energy, and I looked quite haggard from the lack of sleep. At the same time, Victoria Thompson and Ethan Miller also spotted me. They were stunned for a moment, then walked towards me with arrogant and disdainful expressions. Victoria, arm in arm with Ethan Miller, sneered at me. "Sincere Clark, how did you sneak in here? Could it be that you knew I'd be attending young Master Daniel Clark's wedding today, so you snuck in to apologize to me? Too bad, it's too late. Ethan and I are planning to get married soon. You've missed your chance." Ethan Miller looked at me with contempt and said, "Sincere Clark, for old time's sake, get lost. Today is my cousin's wedding day. If the Clarks find out you snuck in, I guarantee you'll end up miserable." I glanced at them indifferently, not bothering to respond. My attitude clearly enraged Victoria and Ethan. Victoria yelled at me, "Sincere Clark, don't be shameless when I'm trying to be civil. Ethan and I are saying this for your own good. You know very well the Clark family's standing in the business world. Today is young Master Daniel Clark's wedding, with so many business tycoons present. If a notorious person like you is found sneaking in here by the Clarks, breaking your legs would be letting you off easy. Also, let me tell you clearly, it's impossible between us. Don't even think about remarrying me." Her words made me want to roll my eyes. How can someone be so narcissistic who wants to pester her about remarrying? I'm just quietly eating some dessert here, bothering no one seeing that I was ignoring them. Ethan Miller directly knocked the small plate of dessert out of my hand and said impatiently, "I'm talking to you, are you deaf?" After saying that, Ethan looked at me provocatively, as if certain I wouldn't dare to hit him here. Unfortunately for him, he bet wrong without any hesitation. I slapped him straight across the face. The crisp sound of the slap echoed, causing many guests to look astonished. Victoria Thompson and Ethan Miller were both stunned. Then, a look of venomous excitement appeared in Ethan's eyes. Clutching his face, he said to me menacingly, "Sincere Clark, you're asking for death, so you can't blame anyone else. You dare cause trouble on Clark family territory? No one can save you." The Clark family's security guards noticed the commotion and quickly surrounded us. Ethan Miller, clutching his face and playing the victim, pointed at me and said to the guards, "This damn bastard impersonated a guest," and snuck into the estate. When I exposed him, he attacked me. Grab him quickly before the guards could respond. Ethan sneered at me. "You're dead meat." Victoria Thompson also glared at me furiously and said sharply, "Sincere Clark, you're truly an incorrigible madman to do such a thing at young Master Daniel Clark's wedding. You're openly provoking the Clark family's dignity. Now you can't even leave if you want to. I really regret being so blind to have fallen for you back then. Luckily I came to my senses and divorced you. Everyone saw it. Sincere Clark hit Ethan Miller first. He was the one who provoked this. He has nothing to do with our Thompson family anymore." Victoria's words were clearly meant to publicly disassociate herself from me, as if worried the Thompsons would be implicated when the Clark family's guards threw me out. However, the Clark family's guards didn't lay a hand on me. Instead, they looked coldly at Victoria and Ethan, awaiting my orders. Seeing that the Clark family guards didn't touch me, Ethan Miller seemed to feel he was losing face. His face darkened as he yelled at the guards, "Didn't you see I just got hit? Throw this bastard out immediately, or I'll tell my cousin and have all of you fired." The guards continued to look at him coldly, as if he were an idiot. Some of the onlookers noticed that the guards' attitude towards me was a bit off. They looked at me strangely and began to whisper among themselves. At this moment, Arthur and Eleanor Thompson, who had been schmoozing with the business tycoons, hurried over. After Victoria and Ethan exaggeratedly recounted what had just happened, Arthur and Eleanor exploded with anger. They glared at me and cursed, "Sincere Clark, you lowlife born without proper upbringing. Are you deliberately trying to embarrass our family here? Ethan Miller is about to become our son-in-law. He's countless times better than you. If you hadn't pestered our daughter relentlessly back then, why would she have married a good-for-nothing orphan like you? Don't think you're so great just because you worked in our company for a while. If our family hadn't helped you, could you have achieved all that? You disgusting thing, just looking at you makes me sick. What's wrong with you security guards? Hurry up and grab this guy. He hit the cousin of your young mistress. Clark, we were invited by the Clark family. If Mr. and Mrs. Richard Clark knew you treated their guests so disrespectfully, allowing them to be humiliated here for no reason they definitely wouldn't spare. You, Arthur and Eleanor Thompson, were being very aggressive, mainly because Ethan Miller's cousin was Sophia Miller, the bride of the day. Even with Arthur and Eleanor Thompson yelling and cursing like this, the Clark family's guards remained unmoved. Anyone who wasn't a fool could see something was amiss. Just then, Daniel Clark arrived with Sophia Miller. The main figures of the day had appeared. instantly drawing everyone's attention. Arthur and Eleanor Thompson quickly put on fawning smiles and went up to Daniel and Sophia to complain, adding fuel to the fire as they slandered me. Victoria Thompson also hurriedly said to Daniel, young Master Clark, that Sincere Clark is my ex-husband. He has violent tendencies, which is why I divorced him. Who would have thought he'd keep pestering me and even sneak into the Clark estate? Someone like him has an extreme personality. He must be driven out immediately. Ethan Miller, looking aggrieved, said to Daniel and Sophia, cousin-in-law, you have to stand up for me. My face is all swollen from that bastard's beating. We can't just let this go. And your family's security guards, they didn't even try to take down Sincere Clark. They're all like wooden posts. Just a bunch of freeloaders. Fire them immediately. Daniel Clark nodded, a playful look in his eyes, and said to Ethan Miller, how do you plan to get revenge on him? Tell me, and I'll do as you say. Hearing this, Ethan Miller immediately became excited. He gave me a vicious, triumphant look and said, break his arms and legs, make it so he can never stand up again for the rest of his life, make him beg on the streets for the rest of his days. Before he could finish, he was slapped hard across the face. The one who slapped him was Sophia Miller. Sophia looked at him, her face like frost, and said coldly, Ethan Miller, you've been using my name out there to gain quite a few benefits lately, haven't you? We're only distant relatives. I acknowledged you as a cousin back then, out of respect for your elders. But you caused trouble for me on my wedding day? You really don't know how to spell death, do you, everyone? From this day forward, Ethan Miller and I have no relationship whatsoever. In the future, please be discerning when dealing with him. Don't be fooled by him at this. Not only was Ethan Miller dumbfounded, but everyone else was also shocked and stupefied. What's going on? Ethan Miller is clearly the victim. Why is Sophia Miller treating him like this? Sincere Clark, the one who hit him, is perfectly fine, but Ethan Miller, the one who got hit, was reprimanded by Sophia, and she even disowned him as a cousin. What the heck is happening? The Thompsons are panicking. They were hoping to use Ethan and Sophia's connection to get close to the Clark family, but now that's completely down the drain. Am I seeing things? Why do I feel like Daniel Clark and Sophia Miller are looking at Sincere Clark with such respect? Ethan Miller's face was deathly pale. He stared blankly at Sophia's ice-cold expression and stammered, Cousin, why are you? Before he could finish, Daniel Clark brought Sophia Miller over to my side. Sophia looked apologetic and said to me carefully, Big bro, I'm so sorry. I didn't know this Ethan Miller would be so arrogant. I cut her off with a smile. It's not your fault. This mess between him and me, you can just put it on my little brother's tab. Daniel's eyes widened, and he said with a wronged expression, Bro, what do you mean by that? I said irritably, It means, whenever I'm unhappy and remember this stupid mess today, I'll beat you up. Got a problem with that? Daniel retorted indignantly, It was Mom and Dad who insisted on inviting Ethan Miller and the Thompsons. What's it got to do with me? If you've got the guts, go complain to Mom and Dad. I chuckled coldly and said, Little bro, it seems my brotherly care and guidance haven't been sufficient lately after your wedding today. Starting tomorrow, Big bro will give you some lessons, Daniel wailed. Our brotherly interaction left everyone present dumbfounded, staring at us in disbelief. Victoria Thompson's pupils constricted. She stammered, looking at me. You're Daniel Clark's older brother? Ethan Miller found this even harder to accept and blurted out, Impossible, how could an orphan like you be a young master of the Clark family? You're definitely a fake. You must have used some underhanded means to deceive the Clarks. Arthur and Eleanor Thompson didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Their bodies trembled as they looked at me, their faces drained of all color. Daniel Clark narrowed his eyes at Ethan Miller and sneered, You wanted to break my big bro's arms and legs and make him beg on the streets for the rest of his life? You're quite vicious, aren't you? Ethan Miller's legs went weak. If he hadn't been clutching Victoria's shoulder, he would have collapsed to the ground. Then Daniel looked at Victoria Thompson, shook his head, and sighed. You could have been my sister-in-law. What a pity. But then again, A woman like you really isn't good enough for my big bro." Victoria Thompson's eyes reddened, and she burst into tears, wailing. Arthur and Eleanor Thompson looked at me with terror, trembling, just as they were about to stammer some apologies and pleas for mercy. My parents, Richard and Margaret Clark, walked over. Dad clapped my shoulder and announced to everyone, "This is our son, Sincere Clark, lost for many years and only recently found. From now on, the Clark family's businesses will be inherited by him. Also, I'm sure you're all aware of the recent online slandering campaign against my son. I won't say much more. Every single one of those who spread rumors and slandered my son, don't even think about running. Just wait for a letter from the Clark family's lawyers. I won't be satisfied until those people are bankrupted by compensation. Finally, I declare that starting today, the Clark family will launch an all-out attack on the Thompson family's businesses. Anyone who cooperates with the Thompsons is an enemy of the Clark family." As soon as Dad finished speaking, Mom stepped forward and slapped Eleanor Thompson hard across the face, then kicked Arthur Thompson in the stomach. Looking at Arthur and Eleanor, who were wailing in pain, Mom said forcefully, "If it weren't for my son all these years, would your Thompson family be where it is today? Slandering my son as a kept man, a pretty boy moocher, and treating that treacherous scoundrel Ethan Miller like a treasure. You two aren't just blind. Your hearts are blind too. You could have become in-laws with us. It's a pity you're such poor judges of character. From now on, your whole family can prepare to beg on the streets." After saying this, before Arthur and Eleanor could respond, Mom assertively had the security guards throw them out of the Clark estate. When Ethan Miller was thrown out, he had wet his pants. When Victoria Thompson was driven away, tears streamed down her face, her makeup ruined by her crying. After they were kicked out, Mom smiled at me and said, "Son, feel better now?" I nodded and said to my parents with a somewhat helpless smile, "You've both worked hard, but I'm not the main character today. Let's hurry up and get on with little bro and sister-in-law's wedding." The wedding proceeded as planned. The earlier scene was like a minor interlude that no one paid much mind to. However, when this scene was spread online, the internet exploded. "Wow, Sincere Clark is actually the eldest young master of the wealthiest Clark family. The Thompsons must be crying their eyes out. Now that idiot Ethan Miller dared to insult Sincere Clark too. His face at the Clark estate, and even wanted to have Sincere's limbs broken and have him beg on the streets. He's finished. The Thompson family is finished too. The Clarks have announced they're targeting them. I heard their business partners are already scrambling to cut ties with them. The most tragic one is Victoria Thompson. She could have become the young mistress of the Clark family, but she played a winning hand so badly. Look, those streamers and media outlets that were spreading rumors and slandering Sincere Clark online have all come out to apologize. Their attitude is so sincere they're not apologizing because they realize they were wrong. They're scared. After all, the Clark family's legal team is top-notch. They'll definitely bankrupt anyone who defamed Sincere Clark. The news of Daniel Clark's wedding didn't even make the top trending headlines. The trending topics online were all dominated by the Thompsons and Ethan Miller. After being thrown out of the Clark estate, Ethan Miller was also abandoned by the Thompson family. He tried to drown his sorrows in alcohol, got drunk and disorderly on the streets, cursing loudly. That same night, he accidentally fell and broke all 4 limbs, even knocking out all his teeth. He reported to the police in grief and anger, claiming someone had beaten him up and insisting I had sent people to do it, but there was no evidence. After all, when he was drunk and yelling in the park that night, there were no surveillance cameras in that area, so it became an unsolved case. Ethan Miller became a cripple, numbly begging on the street corners. Before long, unable to bear the cold stares of the world, he threw himself into a river in grief and despair amidst the jeers of the crowd. The Thompson family's businesses were continuously attacked and devoured. Partners withdrew their investments one after another, causing the Thompsons' capital chain to break. Irrecoverable, they could only declare bankruptcy. I heard that on the day the company went bankrupt, Arthur and Eleanor Thompson were so overcome with anger and anxiety that they both suffered strokes and were hospitalized with severe disabilities. And none of this had anything to do with me anymore. Since Daniel's wedding, I had begun to gradually take over the Clark family's businesses, so busy day and night that I was completely swamped. How could I have time to care about the Thompsons or Ethan Miller? One day, Daniel came to my office, saying he and Sophia were going on their honeymoon. I looked at him helplessly and said, "Mom and Dad have retired and gone traveling. You rascal, are also ditching the family business. Are you trying to work me to death like a donkey on a collective farm?" Daniel chuckled and said, "The capable should do more work. Big bro, you just have to work a bit harder. When you get married and have kids, you can train a successor, and then you can retire early like Mom and Dad. By the way, those debutantes Soph introduced to you, and the girls Mom and Dad introduced, they're all pretty good. Why haven't you met any of them?" I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose, and said, "I don't want to date right now. It's too much trouble. Maybe later." Daniel looked at me strangely and said, "Bro, don't tell me you were hurt so badly by Victoria Thompson that you still can't forget her. As the old saying goes, the best way to forget a past relationship is to start a new one immediately." Before he could finish, I pointed towards the office door and said without looking up, "Get lost." Daniel chuckled and said, "All right, I'm getting lost, but before I go, just wanted to let you know Victoria Thompson is here. She's outside the company building. She said if you don't see her, she'll wait indefinitely." Before I could reply, Daniel scurried off. My brow furrowed slightly. I got up, walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, and looked down. After a long moment, I sighed deeply, left the office, and went downstairs. Outside the company entrance, Victoria Thompson was wearing a beige dress, looking like a recent college graduate. She was holding a bouquet of flowers. Ignoring the strange looks from passers-by, she gazed intently at me as I walked out of the company, a radiant smile on her face. I maintained a distance of 2 meters from her, watching her calmly. Victoria Thompson's eyes were red and swollen. She smiled at me and said, "This is the dress I wore when you proposed to me all those years ago. A few years have passed, but it hasn't changed much, has it?" I didn't respond. She continued, "Sincere Clark, do you remember what you said when you proposed to me? You promised me you would always be good to me. You promised you'd never leave me for my entire life. I was deceived by that scoundrel Ethan Miller before, which is why I did things that hurt you. I know I was wrong now. Can you forgive me? Let's start over. From now on, I'll do whatever you ask. I'll never do anything to wrong you again, please. Give me one more chance." After speaking, she took out a proposal ring, the one I had bought when I proposed to her. She looked at me with an expectant face and said in a trembling voice, "This time, let me be the one to propose, Sincere Clark. Will you marry me again, please?" As her voice fell, she half knelt before me. I immediately stepped aside, looked at Victoria calmly, and said lightly, "Some things, once missed, cannot be reclaimed. Not every 'I'm sorry' can be met with an 'it's okay.' Victoria Thompson, we are already divorced. The moment you chose Ethan Miller, our relationship came to an end. Don't dwell on the past. I did indeed love you deeply once, but now, I no longer love you. From now on, you are no longer in my world. Don't disturb my life anymore." Tears streamed down Victoria Thompson's face. She took 2 steps forward, wanting to say more. I, however, took 2 steps back and said to her calmly, "Goodbye, and farewell forever." Without waiting for her response, I turned and left. Victoria Thompson wailed in tears, filled with regret, but this was the path she had chosen. Who could she blame? No one waits in the same place for someone forever. Only when you lose something do you realize its value, but by then, it's just lamenting in vain. Victoria Thompson, we will never meet again.